Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 2024 City Development Delegated Committee. I declare the meeting open at 6:32 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation, and we offer our respects to the elders of these traditional lands and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples past and present. I'd like to kindly remind everyone to switch off your phones or turn them on to silent. I advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on Council's website. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, your presence may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, meetings may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. Ms Haddock, are there any requests?
No requests, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? No?
No apologies.
However, as per Rule 72.3 of Council's governance rules, I wish to advise that Councillor Michael Clark is attending this meeting remotely. Councillor Clark, can you please confirm that you can hear and see this meeting?
Yes, Chair. Thank you kindly. And greetings, councillors. Greetings, Chief Executive.
Thank you very much, Councillor. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, I ask if any councillor has a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items on tonight's meeting. There are none. I'd like to advise committee members and those watching this meeting that before the conclusion of tonight's committee meeting, it is proposed to amend the agenda and to suspend standing orders to allow the opportunity for council laws to acknowledge our 4-year term coming to its sweet conclusion. With the election period commencing 12 p.m. on Tuesday, 17 September 2024, this is the last opportunity for this acknowledgement to formally occur. I'll now move on to explaining how public question time and requests to address the committee will work. There are two opportunities for members of the public to participate in tonight's meeting. The first is public question time and the second is requests to address the committee. Addresses to the committee will be heard immediately prior to consideration of each item. We'll now move into public question time. I'll now explain how public question time will work. Public question time is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. And as Chair, I will decide who answers these questions. Public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless an extension of public question time is resolved by Council. Ms Haddock, are there any questions for the committee tonight?
Yes, Chair, we have 3 questions.
Could you please?
Would you like me to
Please.
read? So the first question is from Vincenzina or Tina Napper, and Tina asks, why should the residents at 41 Moreland Street and 1 Saltwater Place endure the loud music from the proposed stage, which is earmarked to be closer to the north fence, which are people's homes, and not be located to the opposite side closer to the Arts Centre, which has ample space to have, I think they mean and accommodate for a stage and amenities building. By doing this, it will be removing much of the disturbance and rowdiness that is proposed, with 2,000 attendees will make late in the evening.
Thank you, Ms Haddock. Thank you, Tina. I might refer this to Mike McIntosh for an answer,
Yes.
please.
Thanks, Councillor Tran, and through you. The proposed amphitheatre has been located as proposed in order for the stage and subsequently noise to be orientated away from the abutting residential uses. The building itself would act as and provide a partial acoustic shield to the northern interface where the apartment buildings are located. This is supported by an acoustic report which was submitted as part of the application and formed part of the public notice documents.
Thank you very much, Director.
The second question is, we also have a safety issue literally at our back door. Why can't it be moved away from people's homes?
Again, I'll refer to our Director for Planning and Environment.
Thanks, Councillor Tran, and through you. The site is separated from the residential areas, with the proposed amenities building and amphitheatre providing additional separation. This provides a physical buffer and an acoustic buffer between the 2 land uses. Patrons will be controlled via the required operational management plan, ensuring no unreasonable amenity impacts to surrounding land uses.
Thank you very much.
And the third question is, has the Development Committee considered conducting an acoustic report on what levels will be reached between the concrete structures of the neighbouring buildings of 41 Moreland Street and 1 Salt River Place, namely at the back of the apartments at 41 Moreland Street facing the row of concrete garages that accommodate all the residents at One Saltwater Place, should the stage go ahead in its designated location.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haddock. Once again, I'll refer to our Director for Planning and Environment.
Thanks, Councillor Tran, and through you. As mentioned previously, acoustic testing was undertaken as part of the design of the development, which notes that, subject to appropriate noise management strategies and operational requirements, the proposal would comply with the Environmental Protection Regulation 2021 as they relate to noise. FCA and the adjacent apartment buildings are located in the activity centre zone, where a mix of land uses are permitted and encouraged. Large-scale events for over 2,000 patrons would require separate place of public entertainment permits, under which additional noise mitigation measures would be required.
Thank you very much. I might add further, Tina, that if you or any of the community want a copy of that report, the acoustic report that's referred to in both of these different answers, please send an email through to council officers, and they'll endeavour to get back to you with a copy of that report as soon as possible. Thank you, Ms. Haddock. Are there any further questions?
No further questions.
That being the case, I'll now call public question time to a close. We'll now move to agenda item 5.1, confirmation of minutes of City Development Delegated Committee meeting 27 August 2024. I call for Council to move that the minutes of the City Development Delegated Committee meeting held on 27 August 2024 be confirmed. Councillor Lamb, your worship.
For office recommendation that the City Development Delegating Committee confirm the minutes of the City Development Delegating Committee meeting held on the 27th of August 2024.
Thank you very much, your worship. I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas, are there any speakers for the motion? Oh, sorry, are there any points of clarification, councillors? Speakers for the motion or against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. We'll now move to agenda item 6.1, planning permit application at 2-6 Ballarat Street, Yarraville. Ms. Haddock, are there any requests to address the committee tonight?
Yes, we have two requests. The first one, could I invite Trevor Young, or Junge? I hope I have that right, Trevor. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Junge, to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm one of the people that has opposed this development, or the pergola. I've been a trader and a resident of Yarraville for over 25 years and was involved with the pop-up park, as it was back then, being a community space and a trial that then saw it become a permanent feature of Yarraville. And we've had a lot of successful events that's brought the life to the village, and I think it's very important to see that what we are talking about here with this development is about open space and community space, and any development that goes on in this area is going to impinge on that collective space. And the most important thing, if we're going to have a development like this pergola, it needs to be consistent with what happens with the rest of the pop-up park and the adjacent park nearby. With COVID, we saw the parklets and the temporary structures that were brought out to help the food and beverage industry maintain its ability to thrive through COVID. And after that, most of those parklets were meant to be removed, and some of the features of that time were then given an extension. And I think this is important to see that this particular project has been flawed from the beginning. This structure was never a temporary structure. It's already bolted into the ground. The engineering speaks of not anything to do with it being temporary. And then we had a planning process coming out for this to now become a permanent structure, which obviously I think reduced the amount of people that would have objected to the thing being built in the first place. I also want to say that this business has consistently breached council rules in the past. Firstly, we had a temporary marquee put up without permission, and the council then went about to remove it. or force the applicant to remove it. This new structure then was built, obviously with council approval, but then they put on block-out blinds, which wasn't part of the development approval, and on many times they put those blinds down to create a dining area in our public open space that shielded it from the rest of the public. And multiple times they had council officers ask them to put those blinds up again, and they continually seem to be able to put them down willy-nilly. And I think that speaks volumes that this is a recalcitrant trader, and here we are going to reward them with this structure in our public open space. About the structure itself, I think it's over-engineered. It's something that is an eyesore as far as what should be a beautiful space in the village. It has no architectural merit. It distracts from many things like the sculptural trees of the village, but most importantly, it detracts from the the heritage sightlines of the old post office itself, which is the business, as well as the Sun Theatre. The business itself has an upstairs dining area, a downstairs dining area, a balcony of its own. I don't see why it should be having another area that's a permanent dining area that's different to everything else in the village in that pop-up space area. It's also going to set a precedent. If we have this as the norm, what stops other traders saying, well, why can't we do this on our footpath? If they're allowed to have this structure that is permanent, we can put these clear blinds down. What stops them asking or having the same requests, and what stops you from approving it? And then taking away from what we have always found difficult in this area is to find open space. We have, so I suppose in summary, when we look at what goes on in that open spaces and with the other businesses that have outdoor dining, they have umbrellas, including their own business next door, the Bottega, which seems to work quite fine. So I don't see what benefit it has to allow this one trader to do something above and beyond any other trader. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yung. Are there any further
Now,
questions?
could I invite Michael Smith on behalf of the Sun Theatre to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes?
Sure. Good evening. I'm listed as speaking for the structure. I'd like to say that I actually am in favour of the outdoor space. I hear everything Trevor said about the process that was taken, but at the end of the day, I'm about the public and what the public like. It's a very, very busy area in the village, and so I really take my hat off to them for doing something that, and I literally have, something that that the public really wants. Okay, so from that point of view, I support it. I have to say, and I'm sorry, Claude, I haven't actually found the time to talk to you about this, but I hate the tent structure on top. I'm fine with the metal structure around it. I'm fine with the posts because they're if everything's black, it kind of just blends in. But having the white tensile structure really does distract. One thing I notice is we get people from around the world, not just around Australia and around Melbourne. We get people from around the world coming to take photos of the Sun Theatre, and that's something we're pretty proud of. And the photo from that end of the street just has changed forever with those white, I think 3 points. So I would ask that, and which is on the papers in my written submission, that I would be happy for the structure to stay if the tensile structure could be taken away and a flat roof was just put in there, so that the roof structure was contained within that, which I could see how to do if it was mine. And I have to back up the blinds, I think, are an issue, guys. When the blinds are down, I was watching it happening, and so I actually sat down on a seat and just watched how people interacted with that. And what I noticed was people would be walking down the footpath and just take a wide berth and go around. It's like as soon as the blinds came down, it was like that was a closed restaurant space, and I just saw people didn't want to walk through because you've got waiting staff, you've got people waiting to get a seat. So all of a sudden, it just felt very, very blocked. And the beauty of that park, I mean, the reason it's been applauded, and again, we've had people from councils interstate even come and look at it, was because it was such a wonderful thing to do, to close that road and make that a public space. So we really don't want any part of it to feel like there's kind of a blocked off section that's not open to the public. So that's a qualified support I don't really have anything else. Thank you very much.
Could I ask a question, please? Sorry, Michael.
Michael, do you want to come back? Sorry, I think
If I
councillors have some
could,
questions.
Ask a question. I mean, the officer recommendation recommends replacing the block-out blinds with clear plastic blinds. Do you think that would satisfy?
Sorry, I didn't read that.
That's okay.
I wouldn't like that at all, sorry. I mean, the problem with all of those things is they get some age on them, and I think anything that comes down and makes it look like it's blocked off to the public, it always looks shabby. You know, when you see, there was a spate of it in Lygon Street where everyone was doing that, and it just made the whole place look tatty. If, you know, if there was a compromise, I'd hate to see the end ones on. If it was the other one, maybe, but I just think it's such a good roof structure. I mean, it could be such a good roof structure. It at least gives that protection. And to Trevor's point, if everyone started doing that, then the whole of Yarraville would look shabby, and Yarraville really has a unique character. That's why there's a heritage overlay. The number of people who come and are just taken away that this place is just locked in time, you know, is pretty special. So I would prefer it wasn't there.
Any further question, councillors? Thank you,
Yeah,
Michael. Oh, sorry, Councillor Clark.
Oh,
sorry,
I'm sorry,
Michael.
Mr.
The other Michael's got a question for you.
Hi, Clarky.
Thanks so much, Mr. Smith. So just to be clear, Michael, you're prepared to support the motion?
I support it if what I've said can be taken into account. I don't know how that
Yep.
works for you.
If
Yeah.
the blinds were moved and so,
And the roof structure.
and the
was-
roof structure was.
Yeah.
Did you hear that,
Yep.
Michael?
Yeah, and thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, as a general process thing, sorry, this just really quickly, I would have loved it if whoever was looking after this actually reached out to us and said, look, you put in this submission, we're preparing what we're going to put, how do you feel about this? Or a little bit more before we get to this meeting, because it feels like it's almost too late now. I'd love to have had a conversation with whoever was looking after it. Again, sorry, I didn't think to reach out, but as the direct neighbour and someone who's, you know, reasonably affected by it, it'd be great if part of the normal process was let's speak to the most immediate neighbours and see, you know, if we could arrive at the meeting with this sorted out.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll take that on board.
Councillor Clark.
So,
Also, well, Mr. Smith, sorry, you have to come back. I think there's another question for you.
Oh, sorry. My 3 minutes is
Thank
up, I
you.
think, Michael.
Any further questions, Councillor Clark?
yes, I do. Thanks. So, Michael, if we remove the clear plastic blinds and what else?
The roof.
The tensile roof structure, if the tent structure could be replaced with a flat roof.
Yeah, so that is the officer recommendation already.
Yep.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The roof structure, but not.
Sorry,
not,
all I got was, I'm sorry, I just got told the meeting was on, I haven't
That's
seen
fine.
any papers.
That's fine.
I'm sorry. Okay, well then,
No, it's all taken on board. Councillor Clark, any further questions before I actually tell Mr. Smith he can sit down now?
no, that's okay. Smithy, sit down.
Nice.
Bit brutal. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Chief Executive Officer, are there any further
No
addresses?
further requests.
Actually, I do believe there is another request. It is to speak on behalf of the applicant, Claude. I apologize, I don't have a last name, Claude, but if you would like to address the committee, please step up to the podium.
I don't know that we've received that, so I'm...
I apologize.
Sorry, did you put in a request to speak?
I think it was a request, Celia, but it might have been,
You did?
yes.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. Thank you for that.
Okay, yeah, no, we're
Claude,
going to let
please.
him speak. It's just, I was just
Please,
checking
yeah.
the paperwork.
So listening to all the complaints, I would have liked if Michael come to see me a long time before that, but we actually approached council and Paul McKeon, who was the senior person at council, for all the help from day one. So we put in plans, permits, applications, styles, the whole lot. So to hear all this from our point of view is a little bit maybe uncertain from council's point of view, because maybe they should have stepped in and spoken about the tops or the glass, because what Mike's saying and whatever saying is you can't take the top down without taking the structure down, number one. Secondly, we went through COVID. We were hit hard, we all were hit hard, and we did this and I've got all the documentation, and council's got it also, that we actually went through the process, the proper rules and regulations, and we were given the approval from council. So I wouldn't have spent what I spent on it in excess of $100,000 if it was a temporary measure, or if council weren't indicative that we were supposed to change it or do whatever, because we were in discussion with council. We had our own heritage advisor come on board. We've had council, numerous meetings with council throughout the time, advising us what to do all the way through. They've stepped us through the whole lot. So I think this is probably one for council to think of, and not to come and attack us when we're just trying to provide a nice experience for clients. That's all I've got to say.
Claude, you might want to wait a second just in case councillors might have any further questions for you. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Thomas?
Well, I kind of had a question based on, it's probably for the officers, just around the process, like the original process and how that unfolded, I guess, in terms of the what I sort of understood to be the original was a temporary structure, which when I look at it, it seems more permanent than temporary. So I just maybe have some clarity from the officers just around, like just that at the beginning, that the original, application that was approved, that obviously the officers worked together with.
It was all submitted under an outdoor dining thing, and Paul obviously being in the highest position,
Claude, apologies, I might cut you off because I might try and get an answer in relation to Councillor Thomas's question from Mr. Minetti, if you could.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and through the chair. So the planning scheme does exempt temporary outdoor dining structures under the COVID-19 provisions. Those exemptions come to an end in October of this year, hence the need to apply for a permanent or planning permit. I have met with Claude and his business partners regarding the approval that was given. Council's understanding was that it was a temporary permit under Council's local law for an outdoor dining structure. I understand that there's some differences of opinion regarding whether or not that was temporary or whether or not it was permanent. But the information available to council officers is that it was approved as a temporary structure only under those provisions.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thanks.
Councillor Thomas, does that address your query?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Just on that point there, we wouldn't have put footings in the ground. That's not my land. We wouldn't have put footings in the ground. We wouldn't have had all the structures engineering done properly if it wasn't going to be a permanent structure. We would have had a permanent, something that we could have taken down. Now, we're always under the instruction. There was never a permit issued saying a temporary measure. And Paul was not of a level that it could be just an officer saying, "Oh, I've made a mistake." Paul knew what he was doing.
Apologies, I might cut you off there. Councillor Kerr, were you... Councillor, any further questions?
I'm sorry.
I think Councillor Clark had one.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Claude, why didn't you discuss this with the other key with the key stakeholders from the village? Why didn't you speak to Trevor Young? Why didn't you speak to Michael Smith about this?
Because I went to council. I went to council, and I would have thought that council would have recommended me speak to somebody. That's fine, no problem. But I went through the council.
That's Claude. You work in a business community. I'll ask it again. Why didn't you go and speak to Michael Smith and other stakeholders in the precinct?
I thought we were all even. I didn't know there were different levels of hierarchy in Yarraville.
Yeah.
So I'll ask again, Claude, this is becoming circular. I'll ask again. So why
Councillor
didn't
Clark,
you...
I know you've asked a question. I know you're seeking an answer. You're seeking a specific answer.
Yes, I do apologise to the council as such. Forgive my frustration.
Understood, Councillor. Claude, thank you for answering the question. I appreciate that. Are there any further... Sorry, Claude, just for 2 seconds. Are there any further questions, councillors? No, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mayor, could I ask the person that held up the piece of paper which for some reason we didn't receive that, would you please give a copy to the governance table?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please proceed. Thank you very much. Are there any further?
No further questions on this item?
Whoops, 1 second.
Oh,
I'll get the point of
Councillor
clarification in a
Walkera.
second. I'll get to you all after this. Councillor, that being the case, I'll now call for Councillor to move a motion regarding agenda item 6.1.
Have we, oh,
Councillor
have we got
Clark?
someone else speaking to it?
No, that
Oh,
was
no,
it.
that's a different
That was it. No, that was
Oh.
they were just making sure that everything was
Yeah.
received. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillors, I move that the City Development Delegated Committee issue a notice of decision to grant the permit for the building and works, street furniture associated with the existing use in heritage overlay at 2 to 6 Ballarat Street, Yarraville, subject to the conditions in attachment 1, with the addition to include the removing of the clear plastic blinds as an addition to that attachment. 2, note the delegation of the Manager City Development Committee to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the issuing of this planning permit. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, councillors. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor.
We might just need a moment to get the.
Oh, apologies. That's right. Sorry.
amended motion up.
Can I just clarify? So sorry,
I think
We'll just get it
Oh,
seconded
it's
and
gonna
then
be-
we'll
just
go
because,
for
yes,
it.
just because there will be a
Okay.
point of clarification. And doing,
Yep.
because Councillor O'Carroll had one as well. Just waiting for the motion to come
There
up.
we go. Is that,
Councillor Clark, can you see the screen? And
No, I can't.
Darn it.
The,
How about now,
Councillor-
councillor?
would you like me to
could,
read
could
it
the,
out?
yeah, could somebody read
Yeah,
it?
no, I just
CEO
want to make
read
sure
it
he's,
for him?
with the addition of, it basically says councillor, with the addition of removing the clear plastic blinds, as you had said.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Councillor's going to for Councillor second the motion. Councillor, and your worship. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarifications? Whichever one would like to go first. Councillor Thomas.
Oh, you go. I'm sorry.
Councillor
Yeah,
O'Carroll.
I mean, I don't know if this is the right place to put it or speaking for. I'm happy with this motion as amended. I do think, and maybe this is why it fits into a point of clarification, I do think while there's been a lot of important opinion expressed, I think from the point of view of record of what goes down on record in the council, it is important to clarify the nature of that original permit being either temporary or permanent, because that actually not only pertains to this dispute, but could potentially pertain to other and future disputes. So I think that is an important thing to go down on record. It doesn't, that doesn't discount any of the discussion and opinions, but I think that is important for council record.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Thomas.
I just wanted to ask the mover if we can add something to that. Is this the right time to do that?
Yes.
Yeah. Could we add another clause about removing the?
So paragraph
Oh,
3. So paragraph 3, is that what you're looking for? Or?
Well, it probably goes before paragraph 3 that we
so the new paragraph 2,
that-
basically, yeah.
that we remove that all the like the structure that is in the pop-up park is moved onto the footpath, so it's not in the pop-up park, and it brings it off the footpath and it's off the park
Absolutely.
onto the footpath.
Chair,
So
absolutely.
the-
I thought that was part of the, and Mr Minetti can give us clarification here, that's part of this particular proposal, that it does come off the park.
Okay, so
No, that's not the,
that's-
that's not the
that's-
original officer recommendation. That was a potential alternate motion.
Can we see clarification from Mr Minetti, please, Chair?
Please.
Yes, through you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Clark. So, yeah, the officer recommendation or the motion that's before councillors now wouldn't pull the structure off of the park. There is an additional condition that I could recommend to councillors, essentially a condition 1F, which would then reduce the width of the structure by about 800 millimetres to pull it in off of the park area.
To remain on the footpath.
Correct.
Councillor Thomas, is that what you envisioned in Councillor Clark in your...
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like that's what Councillor Clark thought he was moving, so
Yes,
something like that.
precisely.
So, yeah.
So Councillor Thomas, yep. So if that,
Yeah.
that amendment could be added with that wording. Ms. Mead, could you just repeat yourself?
Yes, Chair. So the wording would be per the attachment, but modified with an additional condition 1F, which is that the structure, including all footings and supporting structures, reduced in width by approximately 800 millimetres, so that it is contained wholly on the footpath and not within the adjacent Sun Theatre Park / Ballarat Street Road Reserve.
And also, Chair, I do beg your pardon, again, the roof structure, and this is what I thought I was moving, I do beg your pardon, councillors. The tent appearance of the roof structure, that be removed and it be a flat roof.
That's in.
I believe
That's
that's
already
that's been
there.
discussed.
It's
Councillor Clark,
already
it is
there.
Clarify that's in
contained
the
in there, thank you.
conditions, isn't it? Yeah.
But
Yep.
nonetheless, appreciate the clarification.
So we'll just take a moment, if you don't mind, Chair.
Yeah, because we'll have to
Just
move the
get
motion
that
again.
right.
Yep, thank
Councillor
you.
Thomas.
Oh, well, Councillor Clark is moving it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
so-
Okay, councillors, now that there's a new motion in front of us, we'll need a mover again. So I'll call for councillor to move the motion.
Excuse me, Chair, if we can just confirm that that is the
Oh,
motion being
Councillors,
moved, yeah.
Councillor Clark, Councillor Thomas.
Can given my proximity to the meeting, could I ask another councillor to move this, just to be clear that we've actually got the right wording, understanding?
I could read
No, I can move that.
Well,
read it
Councillor
out?
Clark, you want, I can read it out to you so you can see.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, you've seen it? Thank you.
Yeah. See it, no,
I think it's done to me that you've seen it.
Yeah, appreciate your forbearance.
If that's the case, councillors, I'll call for councillors to move a motion in regard to the amended agenda item 6.1.
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark,
Councillor-
thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I move that the City Development Delegated Committee, 1, issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for the building and works, street furniture associated with an existing use in a heritage overlay at 2 to 6 Ballarat Street, Yarraville, subject to conditions contained in attachment 1, but modified with additional conditions as shown below. F, the structure, including all footings and supporting structures, reduced in width by approximately 800 millimetres, so that it is contained wholly on the footpath and not within the adjacent Sun Theatre Park, Ballarat Street Road. Footscray, Ballarat Street Road Reserve, I beg your pardon. G, and with the addition of removing the clear plastic blinds. And 2, with the note the delegation of the manager, City Development, to settle any matters before the civil and Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of issuing of this permit. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, councillor. I call for councillor to second the motion. Councillor Lamb, yep. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, councillors, just to say, while I very much appreciate the intent by Claude and Desporto, any developments at all that occur within the Yarraville precinct must be sensitive to the overall needs of that precinct. I take on board what's been said by Trevor Young and what has been said by Michael Smith, but also taking on board the fantastic efforts of Claude and his staff at Desporto. He will be able to accommodate his patrons, and at the same time, I think with this revised built form, we'll be able to also preserve what is the heritage vista of that precinct. In that particular context, councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for the second to speak to the motion.
Yes, very briefly. I am really supporting the small business and welcome the vitality they bring into our city's Commencement area. And being able to provide outdoor dining was the key to survival of the hospitality sectors through the COVID-19 pandemic. But this must be balanced against the unique of heritage values of the Yarraville village. So I support the motion brought forward by Councillor Clark because it's allowed this small business to continue to trading while also respecting the must love of the Sun Theatre Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers again? Oh,
I was just going to say, sorry, yeah,
Yes,
one
please.
Still
thing.
finishing clarification.
Oh, no?
No,
I was just
okay,
going to
sorry.
just say something about the motion. Look, I want to thank everybody for coming today, and you know, I know this council really does support outdoor dining, and we know that it brings vibrancy, particularly to the Yarraville village, and we know that, you know, Desporto is in their boots and all, providing that ambience, but we do need to balance it, and I do want to read something out from the report, which says, we need to ensure additions do not detract from the character of the heritage area or overwhelm the existing contributory buildings. And when I see the structure, which I admit I thought was temporary in nature because of how it originated, it does do that. So I think this amendment or this recommendation, I think, strikes a balance between preserving the beautiful historic character of Yarraville with the kind of contemporary character that we are all supportive of. So, yeah, I'm supporting of the motion.
thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion to vote, I will have some very brief words. First of all, thank you to each of you who have spoken tonight in relation to this particular agenda item. It's not lost on council laws the concerns that are raised, but it's also not lost on council laws in respect of the process which was followed, the due process, and we understand that it was followed and we appreciate that. The sentimental value of it and the historical value is also not lost on councillors, especially for myself. I used to go to St Augustine's in the area, and I used to play at the local band down there during Christmas period sometimes. I've known the area for God knows how long, because my grandparents used to live in Yarraville as well. So I've known the area for quite a long time. But what I will say is this, and I appreciate Trevor's concerns. Each application is considered on an application by application basis. I understand that there may be concern that a precedent will be set in that there will be further applications from different shops and different restaurants. But as has been seen today, there is always robust consideration, always robust discussion. What I will also flag is that originally this application was not even to appear before council, but for a request of a particular council, which I won't name. But council laws are very understanding of the particularities.
Sorry, can you just repeat what you just said?
The application came before us because council requested it, a council law. They understood this application was on foot, and they brought it to us because they wanted councillors to consider it. They understood the significance of the application. Again, it's on an application by application basis. There's no precedent set.
And it is within the rules.
Correct.
So
It is
the
well-
councillor can request any planning report come to council, no matter how large or small.
Thank you, Ms Haddock. This wouldn't be the first time that councillor has done it either, or this particular councillor has done it. But again, as you can see with the robust discussions and the amendments that have been put up on the board tonight, we do have thorough thoughts about how this will proceed and how this will impact the community. So I do just want to hopefully address those concerns and note my appreciation for the due process that has been followed. and appreciate the compromise that has been had tonight. That being the case, councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And I declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to agenda item 6.2, planning permit application at 201 Ballarat Road, Footscray. Chief Executive Officer, are there any requests to address the committee tonight?
Yes, we have 4 requests,
I
Chair.
might just give a second for each of our applicants. So not detract.
The first request is, I would invite Kim Tobin to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I object to the planning application at 201 Ballarat Road, Footscray, the corner of Ballarat Road and Gordon Street. It is for food trucks and music, open 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I live opposite in the 4-storey block at 205 Ballarat Road, which faces 201. I don't understand why an outdoor food and music venue is being proposed in a high-density residential area. In comparison, Graysland in Spotswood is a food truck live music venue underneath the Westgate Bridge, buffered by factories. It has unlimited parking and over 50 food trucks. Its opening hours are Friday 5 to 10, Saturday 12 till 10 and Sunday 12 till 9. This is an ideal venue for this model of business, not having it in the middle of a high-density residential area. We at 205 have had previous experience with late-night revellers in the car park abutting our building, which is behind the Gordon Street pizza shops and the closest car park to 201. We suspect many patrons will try to park there, given that no parking at 201 is provided. We are worried about the noise late at night when 201 customers are returning to their cars. We are also concerned about tow trucks possibly removing these vehicles, as the signage in the car park states it's now a tow-away zone. This car park became a nightmare also for us a year ago. We had to get the police and the council involved. People from a local bar a little bit further down Gordon Street, they partied there from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And that is listed with the council and with the police. That has been resolved. Our other experience was with unwanted music. When the barber first opened at 201, he had his speakers outside, projecting music straight into all our apartments. Even with double glazing and closed doors and windows, we could hear the music inside our apartments. Complaints were made and he turned it off. We are continually told that this area is zoned for hospitality, but the existing hospitality venues on Gordon Street, they all close at 9 p.m. They're not alcohol focused. There is no music outside. There's very little seating outside. And we have had no noise or car park issues with patrons leaving these establishments. We have read the acoustic study, but nobody has come and stood in our apartments and listened to the potential projected noise. There is a big difference between auditory testing for hearing damage and non-auditory annoying noise. While auditory noise may produce hearing loss, in contrast, non-auditory noise includes annoying sounds such as loud voices, music, cars, phone conversations, etc. This causes annoyance, cognitive impairment, sleep disturbance, and impacts on cardiovascular health. People feel anger, exhaustion, and stress-related symptoms, and in severe forms, it affects the well-being and the health of those people that are subjected to this music in all the apartments surrounding 201.
Ms. Tobin, I apologise. I might ask you to conclude if you can.
I will. I've just got 2 comments. I asked the council, how would you like to live across the road from the proposed venue yourselves? And your vision statement on your website claims residents are entitled to well-planned neighbourhoods that support well-being, healthy and safe living. So why would you grant an application that will create annoying noise and potential health issues for hundreds of apartment dwellers?
Thank you, Ms. Tobin. Councillors? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Turman. I believe there are no questions for you at this point in time. Are there any further
Yes,
questions?
could I invite Maria
Please take a
Connolly
seat, Ms. Turman.
to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Can you hear?
Yep.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm a neighbour of Kim's, living in the same apartment block, and the noise that's coming from the building is our biggest concern. But there is also an issue of safety, because it's a very busy intersection at the corner of Ballarat and Ballarat Road, Gordon Street, and we just find that with the venue being there would be increased numbers of cars and people visiting that area. And with limited car parking, it is going to put extra stress on the area. So we have already had someone from our building who was knocked over by a car that mounted the pavement and knocked him over. So that's just one that I know about. So, you know, the potential for other incidents like that is very high. Also, I mean, the noise, that constant loudspeaker noise from the music is our main concern, but the safety issue is up there as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Connolly, are there any... Nothing from councillors? No, thank you very much. Are there any further questions?
Yes, I'd like to invite Kit Edwards to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Hi folks, nice to see you. My name's Kit Edwards. I live very close to the proposed little hospitality venture on that corner. I'm actually I'm quite excited to have like a local place to have like a drink, have a taco, have some like lovely food, and also maybe bring a little bit of life back to that strip, which Kenny from Consider the Source once sort of called just recently had a touch of death there. Any sort of shop didn't really last that long, and I'm hoping this one might last a bit longer. I am quite worried though as well on one level that, you know, as a business owner myself, and I see some of your faces who actually photograph many events at council, so I sort of feel a little bit anxious being in this space too, for that reason. But in any event, I think from a business perspective, and I noticed that the applicant has actually like halved their patron capacity from 100 to 50 people. And I think from a sort of like financial perspective, for them to really sort of, you know, make money and, you know, pay the rent back, that pace would have to be heaving for the 10 to 12 hours a day that it's operating. And I completely appreciate that's how it would have to be. As someone who lives less than 100 metres from there, I do worry about the ubiquitous issue of parking that always presents. I have looked at the engineer's report for the traffic, which has been proposed from the folks here at the planning area of council, which strangely enough actually considers Ballarat Road as a valid parking spot, where I guess theoretically there are some limitations there, but one could legally park there and be okay. I think the pragmatic application of that is that no one would ever put their car... I'm not sure if you folks have been to the Gordon Street Bakery, bought a croissant, some loaf of bread, but you would never ever park on Ballarat Road. I think it's very dangerous to incite people to park on Ballarat Road, especially if they've consumed some alcohol. But I think that considering the spaces that are available there on Ballarat Road as part of the application is a huge question mark on the integrity of that report, and I would very much implore council to have that independent study reconducted to actually to see what's actually possible. On top of that, I noticed that that I've made over 3 dozen parking complaints for my street alone, of which I speak very regularly to lovely folk who come and enforce and every now and then, you know, come in and mark up, and I know them relatively well on a first name basis and have their phone numbers in my phone. They are very lovely, but I do know that they don't work past 6 p.m. So the question for me is, you know, this lovely venue opening until 10 or midnight, there's no way to actually enforce the parking restrictions to be there. So my question would be, can we have some kind of permit zone after a certain PM for my street in Gerald Street, or can we have extra enforcement to ensure that essentially that people like myself, that our lives aren't duly impacted in a negative way? I am so desperate to support small business, as I am one, and I want to put my money in these people's pockets, but I want to make sure that council has my back and those in my street to make sure that we can all live and work together and make it all work. I think that's so important, and I feel that time and time again these requests are often just so heavily overlooked and the motions get passed. But I do very much ask you folks to put yourselves in my shoes, in my car, in my house, with my family, with all the gear that I cart 100 kilos a day, with my disabled sister who often comes and I have to park 150 metres away. Again, it's not about me personally, but it's all these stories put collectively. We all want to support these small businesses, and if we have the right attitude from council, we absolutely will.
Thank you very much, Kit. Councillors? Councillor Crawford?
Just make a comment if I've got some other questions. I'll wait till the end. Just on the permit in your street, that's not something that we would be able to decide now as part of this permit application, but it's certainly something you could follow up with council. And, they can assess your street and see if it's considered to be valid for a permit parking system.
Thank you. That has been something explored, but unfortunately I have not got a response from the team. I've just for transparency too, I actually contacted the team twice via phone and followed up by email, and a person, I won't mention names because it's not very polite, but I have flagged this with their boss, but they never even had the courtesy or integrity to respond to me.
Mr. Wills, I'm going to cut you there. If that is the case, apologies for cutting you off, Simon. If that is the case, I would suggest that you contact your local council, whoever that might be. I think that is me. However, our tenures are due to end, so if I was you, I would save that for another day with the new council staff, councillor, sorry, and chase that with them. Mm-hmm. Councillors can often be your easiest option to have the conversation with at some stage as well.
Could I perhaps add something to that? That is more of an operational matter if it regards staff, and I'm the employer of the staff. So if you have any issues, please feel free to contact me, Celia Haddock, or...
I actually copied you in an email 2 weeks ago about this issue specifically, just for transparency,
so that would have
because
been
I wasn't getting
somewhere.
a response from anybody else.
Thanks, Ms. We'll chase you up on that. We'll chase up on that.
my Director of Planning and Environment.
We'll chase up on that one. Councillor Karen.
Or Patrick.
So I think these comments are probably most appropriate in this context here as sort of points of clarification and sort of connecting with what's been said and comments and concerns that people have. I'm familiar, obviously, with the report, but I'm also familiar with the lived experience because I live around the corner, the top end of Commercial Road, and I've also previously lived on Gerald Street. Yeah. In fact, our eldest son was born there, not in the house, but brought home. So I'm familiar with the issues there, and I mean, for a long time, a lot of the issues that have been discussed here or raised here, the Power Hotel is still open till 4 a.m. And depending on which side of the Power Hotel you live, that's also got, yeah, it can be, depending on which side of the Power Hotel you're in. So, and there's the tram, which, to this day is the noisiest thing for us in Commercial Road. So I get the issues. The parking issue in particular, I wanted to address because it's one that again, is a lived experience thing. And even though we've only got one car, we can sometimes have to park, quite a long way away with permit and all. It's worth saying, this is why I raised it here as a point of clarification, that at least anecdotally, I don't have the data, I presume some of this data exists, but anecdotally, a big part of the problem at the moment is the new hospital construction. Every second car parked on Commercial Road, at least, is a tradie ute, and around the corner, and around the corner, and around the corner. So now, hopefully, this is something, I say this here because I think it is something that council will have to look at going forward, the whole parking situation there. And it's going to... It doesn't really pertain to this proposal in particular because you've got the construction of the hospital and all that, the parking issues raised by that. But then, of course, you'll have, with the movement of the old hospital, it will be both a good and bad thing because there'll be a transitional period where presumably there'll be more parking problems again. But the other side of that should be that depending on what happens in that site, the biggest pressure on parking in that whole area, all the time we lived there, well, we also lived on McPherson, so we've lived around that area for 20 years. The biggest pressure, actually, historically, was the hospital itself. So, all of that, I think, is something that's going to have to be looked at. So I take your points around the parking issue.
Yeah, thank you. When you sort of say, that this should be looked at, is there a...
Mr. Edwards, I might cut you off. I do apologise. the only reason I did that is because this is not an opportunity for us to have a back and forth debate. I do appreciate what you're saying, and I do know that
That's
you're
fine,
trying to reach
thank
out.
you.
But in that, because I do have another speaker, so I might ask you to take a seat. Thank you so
Of
much
course.
for your time.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate your time.
Could I now invite Bruno Ambrosino on behalf of the applicant to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes?
Thank you, councillors. My name is Bruno Ambrosino. I'm representing the applicant for the permit. I'll keep my presentation quite brief. I'll just go through a few points. Is that, as noted before by the previous speaker, the original application was for 100 patrons. There were initial concerns raised with council's traffic engineers that the number of patrons and the car parking reduction required based off that was a concern for them. To satisfy council's concerns, our applicant has made the compromise and reduced those patron numbers to 50, which has, going back to council's traffic engineers, has addressed those concerns, and they, from their point of view, they no longer have an objection with the traffic engineering regarding the car parking and also safety concerns as well. And just with the other points with the music, so as part of the application, the live music that is proposed on the site is only limited to twice a month, which is on Fridays and Saturdays between 6 and 9 p.m. And as part of, I believe, draft condition 5 on any permit issued, they would need to give any, I think, 7 days or 14 days notice of any live music events, which they are happy to do and be good neighbours and obviously keep everyone happy in the area. They're also committed to implementing the recommendations and mitigation measures requested in the acoustic report, which specifically outlined a noise management plan. Within that management plan, it outlined measures about calibrating music and ensuring that any music is related to background music levels outside of the live music events. And then there's also, I believe, a draft condition requiring them to, after 6 months of commencement, to reevaluate that acoustic report with general tests to make sure they are compliant with those measures. And also note that they will have to comply with the EPA guidelines as part of operating, which is also outlined in a draft condition, I believe, in any proposed permit. And I believe that's it. So again, overall, our client has shown a willingness to work with council. Council has raised some concerns at the start, and our client has made some compromises to satisfy those concerns. And they've been willing to work with council and also address objectors' concerns where they can. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrosino. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Thomas.
Just going to the concerns around car parking and people coming to the venue. I mean, I know that there's a couple of buses that run along Ballarat Road, and in the report there's a new condition to have bicycle parking available for people to be, locals, I guess, to ride. I mean, what's your sort of response around how will you encourage patrons to sort of come? Because also if people are eating and drinking, there's that issue which is, community-wide. But I guess just for this site, what's yours or the applicant's sort of response around how you will encourage patrons to perhaps leave the car at home to reduce some of that pressure and use, like I think there's 2 buses I think that run up and down Ballarat Road, and with the bike parking and walking if they're local, and the tram, like there are other options. So how will the applicant sort of encourage that from patrons?
Yeah, well, the applicant has committed to including, I think, 12 bicycle parking spaces on site. And given the location, ideally that's why they've chosen this location, because it is such a high access available to different modes of public transport, buses, trams. Also, I would assume a lot of local people in the area would be walking to the venue as well, or riding. And I also believe that the applicant has been, I think they're quite, I think they're located themselves within the area. So I think they're committed to operating a sustainable and business which looks to encourage people to utilise public transport or other modes of transportation. They are aware of the issues with the car parking on the site.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other queries or questions from Councillor Laws? Thank you very much, Mr. Ambrosino.
Thank you.
Chief Executive Officer, are there any other requests to address the committee tonight?
No further requests.
Thank you very much. That being the case, I'll call for Council to move a motion in regard to agenda item 6.2, planning permit application at 201 Ballarat Road, Footscray. Councillor Crawford.
That the City Development Delegated Committee, 1, issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for A, use of the land for retail premise, food and drink premise and shop, and as a live music entertainment venue. B, building and works. C, sale and consumption of liquor on premise licence. D, display of signage. E, a reduction of the car parking requirement within a public acquisition overlay. And F, alternation of access to a road within a Transport 2 zone Ballarat Road at 201 Ballarat Road, Footscray, subject to the conditions contained in attachment 1. 2, note the delegation of the manager City Development to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the issuing of this planning permit.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Carroll? Oh, Councillor Carroll, I saw you first. So I apologise. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. Look, these decisions are always tough. They're always controversial. You're always going to get difference of opinion. It's unfortunate that this site, this design, this business, whatever you want to call it, got off to a bad start with its neighbours. That's never helpful. Hopefully, when the matter of the loud music was reported, it's since been resolved. It was good to hear that they turned it down, but yeah, that doesn't help the situation. My understanding of the requirements in this planning permit are that, with the exception of the 2 live music events each month, that the music will have to be kept under control, and certainly, there's ways to report if that's not happening. But at the same time, it is important that we activate spaces. That has been a sort of dead space for quite a while now. And we do want to encourage wherever possible activation of our spaces, local business, local entertainment opportunities, within reason. For me, the car parking, I don't like the idea of people driving to liquor venues. So I'm okay with them not having car parking, and certainly I agree with Councillor Thomas's point that the venue should certainly be discouraging people from driving there. For me, there's too many pubs where people can easily drive to them and they then drive home, which is obviously a recipe for disaster. So, I'm okay with this. I hope that they are very considerate of their neighbours, advise their clientele, their customers to be considerate of the neighbours. It's always going to be a bit tricky when it's an outdoor venue as opposed to an indoor venue because it doesn't contain the noise. So, they will need to make sure that they follow the permit requirements carefully. Otherwise, we'll have to follow up with them from an enforcement perspective.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for the Secretary to speak to the motion.
Well, just to briefly underscore Simon's points. As he said, these are always tricky or difficult decisions because, different times of the day, at different times of the week, at different times of our lives, we want more tranquility, less tranquility, more, more social action, more things to go to. So they're always going to be complicated decisions. I think I'm hopeful, especially in regards to the parking issue, which I truly understand the significance of. I'm hopeful that we'll have something similar to the sort of pattern that I think has occurred. Again, I don't have strict data, but the sort of anecdotally, the pattern that's occurred with the Gordon Street Bakery, which is the most used, I'd say, business in that area. And it's mostly walking traffic, mostly. Or if people are parking, they're parking miles away because you can see them walking to it. So, and that's packed. Everyone knows it's the only packed venue or business space in that area. So really, I'd say. I'm hopeful that there'll be some of that. Given that you've got the bus routes, it's not just Ballarat Road. It's the bus down Gordon. You've got the tram. And I'd say too, it's the type of venue that I hope will be used by the actual locality. There's that whole area, especially into Maidstone, because we, as a renter, we've moved around a lot, so also lived in Maidstone. And if you live just that other side of Ballarat Road, there's literally nothing apart from High Point to go to have, like a taco, as you said, or anything, which in the end means you go nowhere. So, you know, hopefully there'll be a little bit of that. Hopefully neighbours will be taken into consideration. I'm hopeful that the business, like most of the businesses in our area, you know, are responsible in that regard. And that a relationship can be built with, you know, the neighbourhood. Really, like a good business should be a neighbourhood business. And, you know, I use that word deliberately, a neighbourhood business. So hopefully, you know, that will evolve. That sort of space, maybe that type of business maybe lends itself to that a little bit. You know, I think the nature of it, it's not a pub, it's not a gambling venue. You know, that's advantageous. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that it will work out over time. Yeah, and in that sense, supportive.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion over, I might flag a couple of things. First of all, thank you to each of the individuals who have requested to speak to the committee tonight.
Was it just a big waste of time, wasn't it? So now you've just condemned us to have drunken people keeping us awake all night, just like it was before.
Thank you, Ms. Tobin.
So thanks very much for nothing. I'm going.
Thank you, Ms. Tobin. Look, what I will say is in regards to this particular, in regard to the submissions that I've made tonight, it's not lost to councillors again in regards to what has been said. But it must be understood in a very multifaceted way. That is, council has its responsibilities to its community members, but that is not to say the council alone or acts alone. What I'm talking about here is that in regards to managing disturbances and so that after our component, council works very closely with Victoria Police, our local police force, to ensure compliance not just with local laws and local rules, but also with state and federal rules and legislation. We have a very close relationship with them, and we'll continue to encourage them if that is the case, because obviously the Powers is around the corner as well, and I know that place quite well. To do more rounds, to do more routes, to do more trips to that area to ensure surveillance is, well, on par with what is necessary for that particular area. What is also not lost on councillors is that the applicant has sought to compromise, is probably the best word that can be used, some parts of its operation. Whether or not 50 patrons or 100 patrons or, God forbid, 1,000 patrons is financially viable for that particular business is up to the business to make that consideration. It is not council's job to tell a business whether or not we think it's viable financially to run a business like that. But I do acknowledge what you're saying, Mr. Edwards, and it's not lost on us. Justice is not lost, as Councillor Kera said, in relation to the parking component. For context, I actually think the Viet restaurant nearby has a lot more business, but I won't make that argument right now. I won't make that argument. But I do know Gordon Street very well because during COVID, it was just inside my range, I think, from memory, and I would go there frequently. Even now on weekends, I go there to get coffee, and might I say the almond croissants there are fabulous. They're probably the best almond croissants in Victoria. So I do understand the concerns. I do understand the parking questions as well. But again, Councillor Kerr is correct in saying that the questions about permits, about changing parking restrictions is another question which should be raised with Council, and Councillor Crawford has also said this, for another application, a different application as well, because there needs to be a holistic consideration for the whole area. I understand that that street is very crucial to the life of business and to the residents, but in its entirety as well, it needs to be considered. So as to ensure that there's an equal balance for everyone in that particular area. Of course, one street gets a permit application, another street, and another street, and another street after that will keep requesting. So bringing it all together is better than having a one-off application and then saying, okay, don't think about the other streets. I end my points there. Councillors, as there are no other speakers for or against the motion, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to agenda item 6.3. Planning permit application at Footscray Community Arts Centre. Ms. Haddock, are there any speakers?
Yes, we have 3 speakers for this item, Chair. I'd like to start by...
Just give them a minute to leave the room if they need. I apologise for just letting the others leave the room first.
I'd like to start by inviting Tina Napper to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Ms. Napper, please.
Thank you for the opportunity of having my say. Look, I come here tonight to strongly object to the proposed location of the amenities building and the new stage, which will be directly adjacent to our apartment. All our habitable rooms face directly to the proposed site, and with this we will have to endure long hours of loud, thunderous music that concerts will project. It is not acceptable to have extremely loud music within a normal residential environment, and it is my right as a homeowner to expect the same level of consideration. Council has a duty of care to provide that right to all residents. Should the council permit its current location, that is abutting all the apartments on the north fence line, we will hugely be affected by the long hours of blaring music and the rowdiness and disturbance that the anticipated 2,000 attendees will create. The proposed location of the new stage and amenities building has been drawn up with no consideration at all for the residents along the north fence line. Large-scale concerts directly outside my apartment is unacceptable on all levels. It should be sited on the south of the reserve, which is adjacent to the Arts Centre, where there is ample room to be constructed. In the past, we've had issues with trespassers entering and exiting that reserve from our back fence. This will further compromise our safety and security with the proposed 2,000 attendees. Council has an obligation to keep its residents safe. For this very same reason, the Laneway Festival, a festival that was held in Moreland Street many years ago, had to be relocated due to the disturbance it created to the residents and also causing access issues to our apartments. There is no guarantee that the site will be secure, nor that all the concerts will end at 10 p.m, nor the fact that there will only be 4 to 6 large concerts per year. For this reason, I strongly oppose the current siting for the new stage and urge Council to have these buildings moved to the existing Arts Centre. I also have other little highlights, given that I may have a few more minutes to spare. My big concern is also the reduction in green space with the new auditorium that is proposed and its large expanse of concrete. All the community enjoys amazing recreation area there with the beautiful green space, and now with the proposed undercover auditorium, we're going to have a large expanse of concrete which will be rarely used on a day when it exceeds unacceptable levels to be sitting outside, whereas currently they enjoy beautiful green lawn and shaded trees. I do oppose the site of the stage, and also propose that you possibly have height poles erected so that we can see the impact to the public of where it will be situated, and how also it will impact also a lot of the amazing views, not from my apartment, but from people sitting up from behind Henderson House, looking towards the city. That's a unique view of the city views, and was also enjoyed on New Year's Eve by over 100 people seeing the fireworks. There is a very unique view from behind Henderson House towards the city, and the construction of the auditorium, I feel, will impact will impact that view, which is very unique. Also, if I can briefly touch up on, there's also talk of the removal of the existing amphitheatre. That is, to me, a unique historical it's unique and historical and has a great value, and I think it needs to be preserved. It's made of the bluestone, and I don't think I've seen anything like it in amongst Melbourne, and I think it should be preserved, whereas in actual fact it says it's going to be removed, and to me that's a big shame, because if you have been to that reserve, you'll see how unique it is, and none of these structures are seen around as a Also, there's another thing of lack of parking. That seems to be the discussion tonight with everybody else, lack of parking. We have that problem now. But also, yeah, the reduction in green space in that public area has been enjoyed by a lot of people.
Ms. Napper, if I could ask you to close.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, sort of
That's okay.
touching
I
up on
appreciate
those main points.
That's okay. I appreciate you can get lost in it a little bit. If you wait, then Ms. Napper, there might be questions for you. Councillors, are there any questions for Ms. Napper? No. Thank you much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Could I now invite Joshua Napper to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes?
Mr. Napper, please.
Thank you, councillors. I submitted my objection yesterday, I believe. My main objection, as a resident, I live in number 11 there. I've lived there for over a decade. My main objection to this is the placement of the amenities building. I believe that there can be a better plan applied to the placement of that building, considering it is right up against the northern fence line, which effectively backs onto a lot of the apartments which face out towards the city. The reason I say this is that there is actually quite a large amount of vegetation along that fence line, which provides shade, heat insulation, sound insulation, as well as a nice visual barrier and segregation from the park to apartments effectively. On page 115 of your agenda items, which actually show the mock-up of the plans, there is a distinct removal of a significant amount of vegetation, which are those trees along that fence line, in lieu for a large concrete structure which will actually sit above the current fence line, considering that the amenities building will be sitting on a sloped hill. The ground which goes into Salt River Place has been levelled downwards, so there's a significant height difference. So as you walk down Swallow Lane, you'll see a large concrete structure. As you look out from your balcony, you'll see a large concrete structure which sits over the fence as well, and there will be no vegetation. So in saying that, I believe that there can be some better planning applied whereby that building can be actually shifted towards where the existing art centre is, and not along a fence line in lieu of critical trees. And given climate change and increasing temperatures, I think trees and green space are crucial, especially in residential areas, given that the heat cells can build up as you add more cement into the area. I'd like to also touch on page 62 of the agenda items under section 6. There was a notification section there which touched on some of the objections received. That section did not actually acknowledge the removal of said vegetation. So there were objections received which touched on that, but that section does not acknowledge those objections. On page 66, there's also an admission of adverse effects and reduction of amenity due to this planning application, yet any rectification suggested does not actually acknowledge the concerns that have been raised. On page 70, the amenity impact listed there still does not consider the new building along the fence line and the impact it will have on sight lines, reduction in green space, and just general amenity. These are my main concerns here, and again, I'll probably echo what Tina has also said with respect to noise, heat, reduction in green space, as well as trespassing, because in previous times there's actually been events across into the park. However, if those events have been ticketed, there will be people which actually climb along the garage roofs, scale the fence, jump over to gain entry. If you put a large concrete building there, again, another point of leverage to enter events. It also provides another access point for trespassers, and security has been an issue in the past with people coming through our car park apartment building to try and, again, scale the fence, jump over and gain access due to these large events which occur. And probably just to close off, I'd say parking seems to be an issue as well. This is going to only be exacerbated by the not that this has already been approved. There's the apartment building which is being built on the old Ryco site. Again, there is an increased number of residents in the area. You then have an event space fit for 2,000 people. You have existing residents as well as the residents from across the road, across Dynon Road. Moreland Street just becomes more and more congested. I'm not against having events at the Art Centre. It's a fantastic initiative, but I think it needs to be managed accordingly because it is now quite a highly densified residential area. So that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Napper. Councillors? Thank you very much.
Chair, if I could now invite Daniel Santangeli on behalf of the applicant to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Mrs. Santangeli, please. Santangeli, I think.
Hello, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. My name's Daniel. I'm the co-CEO of Footscray Community Arts. This project converts Footscray Community Arts' much-loved amphitheatre into an architecturally designed multi-use performance space, as well as a modest back-of-house amenities building. It also re-indigenises the landscape that cares for country through native planting, rain garden and other initiatives. At Footscray Community Arts, we've spent countless hours in consultation around this project with artists, Indigenous leaders, staff, disability community, council, as well as neighbours to get this project right. We've held a community open day with neighbours, and we've also consulted with the neighbours whose apartment directly abuts against the amenities building. Footscray Community Arts makes a significant contribution to the community. We're a not-for-profit, community-led organisation. We're the largest arts employer in Melbourne's western suburbs, and we attract 100,000 people each year to Footscray. We create pathways for marginalised communities into the arts, and we activate, preserve and revitalise an important community and council asset. Each event on the Riverside lawns is a local artist being employed, it's a local couple getting married, and it's also a local Indigenous community continuing their cultural practice. This project is made possible by a landmark investment from state government of just over $8 million in response to the risk of the local community losing the arts if its cultural infrastructure is not invested in. This project is underpinned by a master plan that was co-authored by Council and Footscray Community Arts, and this is stage 1 of that master plan. The development of the Riverside Lawn addresses significant issues for Footscray Community Arts and for the local community who use this space. There's no wheelchair access. The current infrastructure provides no noise mitigation for neighbours. It's just basically an open pit where noise just kind of spills out. There's no weather protection, so there's a significant disruption for artists and audiences and hirers of the space when there's adverse weather conditions. And there's increased pressure on the site due to growing demand and overdevelopment of the local area. It's costly to hire, and it's costly for Footscray Community Arts to activate the Riverside lawns because there's no permanent technical infrastructure. The new design addresses these issues. In line with our Heritage Victoria permit, the proposed works are respectful of the surrounding context due to the relatively subdued scope of the built form, and we've also protected the heritage listed views from Henderson House to the river. Enhancing and maintaining the green space for year-round use by local community has been a priority for this project. And I think it's important to note that this is not a change in use for Footscray Community Arts, but an upgrade in community infrastructure to match our current use. Noting Footscray Community Arts has established an S97N current use rights with Council, Footscray Community Arts having been there for 50 years. And Footscray Community Arts has been activating the amphitheatre and Riverside lawns with talks, workshops, music events, performances, weddings and cultural ceremonies for decades. It's also important to note that our northern neighbours do enter an S173 agreement with Council, acknowledging the existence of an arts centre next door, and that there will be events next door to them. Reducing noise for our neighbours has been a priority for this project. We've engaged acoustic specialist Cundall, and the location of the performance space is specifically designed to direct noise away from our neighbours rather than directing the noise towards them. And the new built form of the amenities building is deliberately placed there to absorb sound, particularly heavy bass sounds as well.
Daniel, I do apologise. I might ask you to conclude if you can.
Yes, I'm almost there.
Thank you.
I think also important to note that we follow operational guidelines under EPA, including sound monitoring for events, concluding event times earlier than the EPA guidelines to ensure patrons leave the site so that they're not contributing to noise. And also large events of 2,000 people, there's a limit of 6 under EPA guidelines, so we actually can't legally go over that, and it's quite rare for us to do, super rare for us to do 6 2,000 people events. This project will make the riverside lawns more accessible, more welcoming, and considerate of the local context, and it's fit for everyday use for community and for hosting outdoor events and activations. Thank you, Council and Councillors, for your time.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any questions? Thank you very much, Daniel.
Okay, thank you.
Ms Haddock, are there any further requests to address the committee tonight?
No further requests, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll call for Council to move a motion in regard to agenda item 6.3, planning permit application of Footscray Community Arts Centre. Ms Thomas. Oh, Councillor Thomas, apologies. God.
Thanks. The City Development Delegated Committee 1, issue a notice of decision to grant a permit for buildings and works in a significant landscape overlay and changes to the existing use pursuant to clause 63.05 of the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme at the Footscray Arts Centre Reserve, 43 Moreland Street, Footscray, subject to conditions contained in attachment 1. 2, note the delegation of the Manager City Development to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the issuing of this planning permit. 3, note that pursuant to the lease between Council and Footscray Community Arts Centre, separate consent will be required by Council for the buildings and works, and acting as Committee of Management, the proposal would need to be referred to the responsible Minister for approval. 4, note that separate consent will be required by Council for the landscaping works, acting as Committee of Management, and that such consent will be exercised by the Manager of Recreation and Open Space.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Crawford. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? That being the case, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I just, thanks for coming in, the three of you, to speak to us. And I think for me, this is it's a wonderful community space. It's a community love space. It's already a vibrant space. I think it's already being used by lots of people. I mean, I take your point that some people might lose some views, or there might be additional noise on certain days. But as I think Daniel mentioned, FCA is limited to 6 over the year. That's the absolute maximum that the licence that can be approved. So I think, in terms of, when we said earlier, we're trying to balance, a growing residential community in and around existing facilities that really do contribute to the life. I'm sure you've probably been to a lot of things, I imagine, if you've lived there for a while, as I have, and probably as councillors have at FCA. And I think you've got a good neighbour in FCA. Council does. We do have a good relationship with FCA, and I think that this will enhance, hopefully, your enjoyment of the space as well. Daniel is here. I'm pretty sure that if there was ever an issue, you just have to go next door, and he's very approachable and knock on the door. So I do. I mean, I hear your concerns, but I think in the scheme of things, for me, where this upgrade or change to the facility will really, it's such an investment in the life of not just the Footscray community and around where you live, but the Maribyrnong community and beyond, because we do have a lot of, as Daniel said, we have a lot of visitors come to FCA. So I really, I recommend this motion. I think it's a really nice. I think it's a sensitive design, and I think I understand why the amenities and the amphitheatre, I think that's what you're calling it, is on your side of the site. It's to kind of project everything away from you, so that you hopefully will experience less noise and less disruption. And I think it takes into consideration traditional owner views and input. It's maintaining the heritage, but enhancing and maintaining, but also enhancing the vibrancy of the space. So I think it's a really exciting change, and I hope that you'll be able to enjoy it, but I also encourage you, if there's something that happens, Daniel's your man as well. So thanks for coming in and sharing your concerns with us tonight. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Thomas has pretty much captured it, so I'll formally second. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Clark. Apologies, your worship.
Is it me?
Yes.
It sure is, Councillor.
Thank you. Thanks also to all the presenters. I really do appreciate the concerns expressed, as well as the outline from FCAC as to the intent of the design. Councillors, can I just say, at this particular point in my life as a councillor, the number of objections to sporting fields and sporting facility development is overwhelming. Now we're seeing objections to arts facilities. Again, this is becoming quite remarkable. I've got to say, councillors, well-being, social, emotional well-being requires more than just open space. If we listen to the elders of Moree, to the elders of Dubbo, and to the elders of Alice Springs, they'll say, we have plenty of open space, but we don't have enough facilities, whether it's sporting or it's arts. Councillors, we have a wider responsibility to the entire community. I must say, and do forgive me when I highlight, it's only those immediately adjacent this particular development that we see objections from. The broader community, we have the responsibility too, not just those immediately impacted, but the entire community. And it's our responsibility to ensure not just the sporting needs of our community are addressed, but the arts needs of our community simultaneously. It's a complex situation, councillors. There is no silver bullet. But if we are the festival city, if we do not just celebrate the arts, but put ourselves up as a destination for the arts, the FCAC development is one piece in the mosaic. We need to do more, councillors. I can only say that in the context of what was said by one of the presenters, we are becoming a densified residential area, and it's in the context of the intense densification. We are going to increase in size by some 114%. That is the state government's expectation of Maribyrnong. Again, in that context, we better have the facilities to meet the needs of a very diverse community. This particular initiative is one slice of the mosaic. I commend the motion to you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Before I proceed, Mr. Napa, I do apologise. I did hear you, and I do know that you wish to provide a response. However,
It's just a clarification point, that was all. Just short.
no. So I apologise. I know, and don't get me wrong, it is a reasonable, I assume it's quite reasonable for you to request it. Purely as a point of procedure, if there is a question for clarification and it is specifically to Councillor Clark or to Council staff in general, can you ask that you please send it via email?
Yeah.
Or to contact Council staff as well. I do apologise. I know.
I just wanted to say it was an outline objection to the application.
Appreciate it, completely appreciate it. And I gleaned that much from your interactions with Councillor Thomas when she was speaking. I definitely gleaned that much. Councillors, any speakers for the motion? Yeah,
you can go
Councillor
first.
Carroll.
Just briefly, I think Councillor Thomas put it quite sort of beautifully, really. I just wanted to emphasise one of her points, because as you would have seen witnessed from all the conversations today, not just this agenda item, relationships between neighbours can be way more complex than the one that you probably got. So that's not a small point, because the ability to have that sort of relationship will make a lot of difference going forward for that neighbourly community, which we were talking about in the last agenda item as well. I mean, for successful businesses and for livability, you need that neighbourliness. So I think in that regard, you're sort of in a good position. The other thing I did want to say, though, because it's come up here again and it's come up previously today, is there will be, for the next incoming council, there are some big considerations and conversations to be had about the densification of that particular area, and it has to be taken as a whole, as a precinct. It's not just the Joseph's Road precinct, it's probably, really, it needs a different name, because it extends from Joseph's Road all the way down to the State Trustees building, when you consider all the new towers being put in there. And there's going to have to be some radical considerations, I think. When you look at not just parking, all the issues that come with densification, we're going to have to look at the planning that I know has already been in discussion. We've had some discussions in council about the avenue down Banbury Street, making that more attractive as a public transport route to the arts centre, promoting public transport access. We're going to have to think about, I think the new council is going to have to think about the sort of radical solutions that certainly for years have been the case in inner city Sydney, for example, which is much more dense. The one-way roads, the closure of certain roads. I mean, that's going to have to come up, because as Councillor Clark has pointed out, if you're looking at, and I mean, I don't think we'll achieve that, but if we're looking at 100% increase in dwellings, so that's an increase in dwellings, by the way. So population-wise, that can be a lot more. Car-wise, that can be a lot more. So we're going to have to really think quite radically about that situation. So I mean, you're in, as I said, a good position to be with good neighbours, that you can have neighbourly conversations about that and input into the community's conversation about that entire area. More than one precinct.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Your Worship.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for your concern, and we do hear and we do listen to you. However, we look at the balance of how we can make the vital the facility that people can come and enjoy. As the Councillor Clark said, that it's a festival city, so somewhere they can see that. I have a look really closely with the planning from the art centre, and look at the architecture, the stone, the colour, the comprehensive, the furniture, what they display, the characteristic that it really bring people more, come here more business, livelihood, and it's make the city better. I think the open communication is very vital as well. If you have any concern, please direct and talk to them. I'm sure that the FCA director, they will listen to your concern, and they will work together with you to make it better where you live and where the art centre work as well. So I wish you all the best that we're out supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Actually, are there any other speakers for the motion? Any speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion to the vote, I may have a quick word. First and foremost, again, thank you so much to each of the speakers tonight. Again, Council takes on each and every one of your submissions. I wish to take this from a perspective that it's clear Council has a very good relationship with FCA, and Council laws do love the FCA for what it has done for this community. But I wish to take away that context for 5 seconds to address this particular component. Daniel, I love you. I love the FCA. Please don't take this to heart. We all do. But I say this as someone who understands what the concerns are, and has for the whole of the night, and every councillor has acknowledged and understood the queries and concerns. I wish to put this out there, that yes, whilst councillors are very understanding of the relationship that FCA tries to have with its neighbours, and whilst FCA will do whatever it can, the council will do whatever it can to help address those concerns, each of those individual concerns I wish were raised earlier. Not to say that they could have been addressed immediately or at the time of being raised, but rather because I believe that some of those queries can actually be answered within this particular report itself. I note, Joshua, that you quite clinically, just wait for me to word it really, pointed out each of the respective parts which you thought were too general or didn't provide enough particularity to what residents like yourself who might have a keen eye for detail want to see. If that is the case, and I appreciate that some of these summary points are quite general, it would be not just in your best interest but in your neighbours as well, and as well as with the applicant, which in this case is the FCA, that those points of clarification are sought well before a day like today. And I appreciate councillors have the benefit that we get to have a briefing, get to have discussions about it with amongst ourselves and so on and so forth with those who are council staff who are more than well qualified to give their educated opinions, suggestions and advice to us, and we rely on that advice as much as we rely on our own personal experience of the particular area, as Councillor Kerr has clearly pointed out in respect of the whole precinct distinction. I say that in the context that tonight there have been so many queries, not just in relation to this particular agenda item, but other ones have come before where clarifications, particularities, like which council laws are well across, community members just for some reason are not. I don't say that that is the residents' fault, but I do note that council should take the initiative on those components to ensure that you guys are across it. But I also understand that there are many residents who just don't have the time of day to read the particularities. Obviously, Joshua, you're not one of them. but if there are points which are raised like this, and they're very valid points, very valid questions, please raise them at a later stage. I understand this is a part of the master plan to go forward, and FCA won't just bar you off from having a discussion, nor will council. So if there are further questions of clarification from yourselves in particular in relation to the general points which should be able to be addressed by council, please ask us. We are your council. We work for you, the council staff work for you, councillors represent you, and it is a community arts centre. Granted, it's the community arts now, but originally it was the FCAC. It still is. That has not changed, and neither the council laws or the council staff. Councillor Thomas put it best. Please, just come and have the conversation with us. Councillors, I now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Thank you so much. If you'd like to leave, please feel free to. Councillors, I still have quorum, so I will proceed. Moving now to agenda item 6.4. State Government's proposed changes to Maribyrnong Planning Scheme Boundary and Draft Amendment GC 187. I'll call for councillors to move a motion in relation to agenda item 6.4. Your Worship.
That the City Development Delegated Committee, number 1, not the requests from the Minister for Planning, the Minister seeking consent to amend the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme boundary under Section 6(6) D of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and view on the draft planning scheme amendment GC 187 to the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme, Attachment 2 and 4. Number 2, endorse the Council Officer assessment and recommendation as outlined in Section 1 of this report, and Attachment 1 as a Council formal position and submission to Ministerial Amendment GC 187. Number 3, resolve to not consent to amend the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme boundary under Section 6(6) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Number 4, authorize the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate to write to the Minister for Planning advising that Council does not consent to amend the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme boundary and provide a copy of Council's submission to GC 187. Number 5, seeking the Chief Executive Officer to write to their counterpart at the Port of Melbourne Corporation seeking the establishment of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two organizations to formalize the relationship, cooperation, information sharing and transparency.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Can I call for Councillor to second the motion? Councillor Thomas?
Okay, done, it's fine.
Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? No, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
That very clearly explaining my motion, formally moved. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I think thanks to the officers for putting together a thorough overview and explanation of why council should reject the proposal to amend the Maribyrnong planning scheme. I think there's a lot of risk in this proposal from the state government, not least of all the potential health and public health and risk to the environment with the expansion, with that expansion brings the possibility of moving hazardous materials even further into our community. We know we have a history. Sorry, that's my umbrella. We have a history of our community living through and suffering the effects of these of environmental hazards. You know, most recently we've had one or two this year, not necessarily in Maribyrnong, but our neighbouring councils, which do also impact on our residents. Those who have lived here for decades know the Coode Island explosion. We'd really like to avoid that level of impact, but also even just the lesser impacts of, you know, vapours, potential small spills, you know, trucks and moving hazardous materials through our residential neighbourhoods, which an expansion of the Port of Melbourne's planning scheme into the existing Maribyrnong planning scheme has the potential to allow those things to happen. So I wholeheartedly support this motion. I think we need to absolutely push back on government in trying to squeeze us out, I think, of decision-making processes that will absolutely directly affect our community. So, yes, I hope council will support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, councillor. Would this, are there any other speakers? Yeah, I thought I'd record. Are there any other are there any questions, point of clarification, councillors? Councillor Clark, please. Are there any speakers for the motion? Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, this is one of the most egregious actions I have seen by any government institution or instrumentality in the, I don't know how many years I've actually been doing this. I'd hate to think, going all the way back to 1967. As Councillor Thomas points out, and I'm going to paraphrase what Councillor Thomas is saying here. The Port has no interest in the Maribyrnong community whatsoever. Their remit is the development, expansion, maintenance of the Port. All decisions that the Port of Melbourne Authority would be making are fundamentally around core business of the Port. This will, councillors, and I promise you, this will be at the expense of our community. Why would it be so? Because, councillors, quite simply, the Port of Melbourne don't have residents to consider. The Port of Melbourne are into one thing and one thing only, and that is trying to turn a profitable business. That's what it's about. Their interest is not in us. Their interest is not in not just the needs of the community, but the amenity of the community. They're quite happy to jettison the amenity of the community, the amenity of those residents who spoke earlier in relation to FCAC. Their issues would be jettisoned to serve the interests of the Port of Melbourne Authority. Councillors, if we do not reject this wholesale and demonstrate that we will not be taken for granted and that we do stand for our community. If we don't do that, we shouldn't be in this business at all. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Carroll.
Yeah, just briefly to add, hopefully to add, I might have missed a bit of what's been said. thanks very much to the officers for the work on this, because I think actually it's sort of, it's appropriate almost that it's our last report. Appropriate, I don't know if it's the right word, but it's appropriate that we're taking a good stance on this in our last report, in the context of something that's been throughout our 4 years here has been a really critical consideration for our community, and that is everything surrounding air pollution and the livability that goes with that. And what particularly concerns me about this proposition is the general context in which it happens, which actually, in terms of legislation, should be part of the considerations. When you contextualise this alongside the new cement grinding facility in Yarraville and the anticipated truck movements there, and on top of that, the Coode Island proposition of 240, 230, 240, whatever it is, I can't remember, I think it's 240 new containers, including containers for dangerous goods, which is under consideration at the moment by the EPA. And it's my understanding too, I'm not 100% on this, that those containers will be for transient matter. So unlike the current VATs that you have there, which have got a lot more sort of safety considerations surrounding them, none of this has been clarified in regard to the 240 new containers that are being proposed and under consideration by the EPA. So when you put all this together, I think, you know, it's particularly sort of objectionable, you know, as Councillor Clark said, what the Port Authority is trying to impose effectively. So yeah, I'm very happy that we've put this together, and hopefully can have an impact.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? I apologise, Councillors, I may have a final word here in this one. I am baffled. Like, just cannot describe how baffled I am. Time and time again, council staff, council laws, the community have policies that are in place that are then practically vetoed by the state government. Before I go any further, I will acknowledge and appreciate that the Minister of Planning has written to us to ask for our consent. It's the very bare minimum one can do, I think. It is astonishing that every consideration, every council policy that may be applicable to these, and the key applicable policies, may I just say, have been ignored, left out, not even mentioned once. It concerns me that council staff have put in God knows how many hours of work, are community-led as well in terms of all of the policies, because there's community consultation that goes up for many of these policies, and all of a sudden we're ignored. We are to be another part of the state government, yet we are seen to be always, and as best I can put it, the whipping boy of local government, of state government. Councillors righteously are frustrated. I think that's the most sensible, coherent word I could put together for it. There are better words for it. I endorse the motion undyingly because councillors have been left with absolutely nothing at each negotiation, not just in relation to this. I could turn to the Braybrooke Regeneration Project. That most certainly has put me in all sorts, council laws and community alike. These particular areas, as Councillor O'Carra has said, we had Coode Island. These are blast zones, practically waiting to go off. We've had discussions in the past as to the size of the freights that come in. We're expecting even larger freights to come in. There's no guarantee that the particular size of the freights that come in are going to be even close to at the minimal end. I'm sorry, but if we're to expect it to be, lack of a better word, cop this and to just accept it rolling over, I would rather soon die than say yes. It is appalling. It is a lack of consultation, and whilst I may appreciate this government for what it does on a day-to-day basis, this is not one of the things I'm going to appreciate. It's frustrating, and I just don't think anyone should be subject to it. Councillors, I endorse the motion. Councillors, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We'll now move on to council question time. Councillors, are there any questions for tonight? Thank you very much, councillors. We'll move into urgent biz. Oh, Councillor Thomas, I apologise.
Yes, just wanted to ask Councillor Crawford whether he was going to stand for council again, or is this his last meeting? Or are we
Councillor
having a
Thomas.
session?
Councillor Thomas, you've foreshadowed something.
Sorry, I'm
which is to
throwing out
come.
my Dorothy Dixer just in case.
No, we'll get there. Any further questions, councillors?
We have speech time, aren't we?
Yeah, we will in a second.
All right, let's do that.
Councillors, any urgent business?
No
No urgent business, thank you, councillors. Councillors, we'll now move, I'll now call for councillor to move a motion to suspend standing orders to enable council to acknowledge the conclusion of the council term. Councillor Thomas, I'll call for councillor to second the motion. Councillor, Your Worship, Lamb, I'll put the motion to vote, councillors. All those in favour? And the motion is carried. I declare that the motion is carried and that standing orders are suspended. Councillors, we are reaching the conclusion of our term. Councillor Thomas has asked a very reasonable question of Councillor Crawford. Councillor Thomas, would you like to ask it again?
Councillor Crawford, are you standing for seeking re-election to council, or will this be your last council meeting?
Helen, do I have Councillor Train?
3 minutes.
Well, you're on the clock.
You're on the clock, councillor. I'm timing.
All right. Thank you for the Dorothy Dixer. I'm not standing again, and I would like to say a few thank yous and make a few acknowledgements, if I may. I have been a councillor for 8 years now. It's been a long time, but it does go very quickly. So it's always surprising when you get to the end of a journey like this, how much has gone and how you sort of feel in a way that you haven't been able to achieve much, but then at the same time you sort of look back and reflect and realise you have achieved quite a bit. I feel like it's time for me to move on. My kids are growing up quickly, so I want to spend more time with them, but also I think it's important to support new blood and new ideas and all that to come onto council. So that's where I'm going to be focusing my efforts. I do want to reflect a bit on the achievements over the last 4 years. When I got elected to council, the council was tearing itself apart at the time over Yarraville paid parking. So I wanted to make it an effort, a real concerted effort at the time, to try to get a bit more cohesion in the council, get councils working together again, as Councillor Lamb would say, harmony within the council. And I feel like we really did that well last term, and it's continued into this term. I've been really proud of the councillors that they've respected each other and worked together. Even when you've got differences of opinion, we've always tried our best to get the best outcome for the community, and that's why we're here. Some specific things that we've achieved over the time that I'm proud of: the climate emergency, the strategy and the adaptation plan, the waste strategy, the 40-kilometre streets and the local area traffic management that we did early on, sporting upgrades that are constantly ongoing, and I've constantly got clubs getting me to come and visit them and show off their new facilities, which they're so proud of. Arts and library. We're talking about the community arts today and the libraries that we're working on, with particularly in Yarraville, the latest development. It's really impressive what we're doing. Community development events, they've been going for a while now, but they just keep going from strength to strength. We've done open space updates, urban forest, street trees. We've done a lot of work in inclusivity, so LGBTQI, gender equality, intercultural, disability, young people, active ageing, which I'm currently the chair, and I know that committee's been really active in trying to make sure that council's heading in the direction that they want it to head, and that's great to see. And the one that I'm most proud of and really was very intent on getting us in the right direction on was with Indigenous inclusion and reconciliation. I'm particularly proud of the work we did on 26th of January and how we've really changed our direction on that. Water, for those that know me know I'm very passionate about water. We've got the integrated water management, we've got supporting the healthy waterways strategy, so we're doing some really good things there. I've listed the medium density guidelines, which sort of part of that, but more. Just generally, Celia, I know you've done a lot of work on things like transparency, engagement, accountability, flexibility, responsiveness and empathy, which we saw a lot of tonight. Again, not everyone in the community is always going to agree on everything, but we really need to just hear each other out sometimes and empathise, even if you don't necessarily come to the same opinion. Left a couple of things to last. Nature plan, that's on its way. That's one thing I've been banging on about for a long time, so I might have to come to that council meeting when that's due to be adopted. And of course, my two top things: bike paths. We've made a good start over the 8 years. but there's still plenty of room to go. And Stony Creek, we have the future directions plan, but I'm going to keep banging on about getting that land under public ownership. It was a mistake very long ago for it to become private land, and yeah, we need to activate the whole Stony Creek and protect it, make it a really treasured waterway, which it is, but it should be a healthy one, which it still isn't yet. Some thanks. So the reality is none of these achievements can be done by one councillor or one officer. They're done together. You know, to my fellow councillors of this council and the previous council, thank you for the collegiateness, if that's a word, for, like I said, that respect. Even though we don't always agree, we do always work through things and come to outcomes which we're trying to achieve for the best of the community. Obviously, I have to acknowledge the loss of Sarah, Councillor Carter. You know, that was a great shock to all of us, and you know, I know a lot of people are still trying to come to terms with that. I do also want to make a special mention to my fellow Greens councillor, Bernadette Thomas, who has been a great support to me for the last 4 years. Officers, there's been so many of you, you know, had the 2 CEOs during my time, but you know, the directors, managers, coordinators and officers, like I can genuinely say every single officer that I've worked with has had their heart in the right place and been trying to do the right things for this community. So, you know, I feel like I'm leaving the place in a good position. More broadly, the community, there's so many amazing people in this community doing really great things. I know sometimes we hear about people doing the wrong things, but I'm an optimist. I like to think that in my experience, there's so many more people doing the right thing, and people that don't always get the credit for the great work they're doing, but they just do it anyway. So shout out to them. Finally, family and friends, especially those who've done babysitting while I'm off doing councillor work over the years. Well, Felix, who is here tonight, he wasn't even born when I first got elected. So yes, thank you to those that helped out. But yeah, finally, of course, to Jenny, my wife, and my kids, Felix, that I've mentioned already, Theo, Frida. Without their support, I wouldn't have been able to be a councillor over the last 8 years, and I'm certainly looking forward to spending more time with them. So I hope I've done justice to the role. Best of luck to the next council, and I'll be watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillors, any further requests to address? I think not.
No one? I will.
Councillor Lamb, your worship, please.
I'm sure there will be.
Well, firstly, that 11 years, and this term, deputy mayors and a mayor. The last term was a mayor, but I really would like to thank you so much for the support from my fellow councillor. Councillor Crawford said, all the best to you. So, after 8 years, have been working with you. As my principal, always want to bring harmony. So our council, we have, you know, I'm very proud to say to everyone and all other meetings that we are a very harmonious councillor here, and we support each other. Sometimes we not all agree, as you said, but you know, we work together, and we talk and we share. So I would like to thank my fellow councillor, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Clark, and Councillor Thomas, Councillor Jorge Hoquera, and Councillor Crawford, Councillor Anthony Tran, and late former Mayor and Councillor dearly Sarah Carter. Councillor Sarah Carter, I know that we have a number of directors. Some directors still, a lot of directors here, like Director Lisa King, Luca Gosling, Pat Jett, my McIntosh just recently joined with us, and LJ, we've got LJ Short for Laura Jo Mellon. She's gone to the State Government Department for all their support. I think when Susan Lee and Ashley Medici is also acting director, it's a wonderful, they're always willing to support with dedication with their job. The PA, Al, Sarah, Brooke, and Hannah, while the Brooke's away. So for they very dedication and very supportive to all councillor, particularly me as a mayor. So I make my work is very easy. I would like to also thank you so much for the CEO, Celia Haydock. She's a very professional and always understanding, and we gone to a conference and other meetings. It's a very supported, highly talk about our council, which is very greatly appreciated. I'm so proud to be a part of this council, and thank you for all the work that they do, not only just the dedication, but also hardworking. They always willing to support councillor and respect, and just really a professionalism to supporting all councillor when they need. So, I would see you around, and thank you so much for being a team, a great team and support. I'm very proud of you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Kerr?
Oh, all right. I think it's most appropriate to start by acknowledging that Sarah's not here with us. I think it's obviously up to all of us as individuals to reflect on that. I don't need to say any more, but I think the acknowledgement is important. Secondly, to thank everybody, all the officers, directors, councillors, for all the time, the 4 years of hard work. And thirdly, and I certainly don't mean this to be or to sound grandiose, but I can't but help to note the coincidence that my last day on council happens to be the same date as my political career started. The 11th of September in 1973. It's probably the only day in my life that I constantly reflect on and write on, because it was the day of the military coup in Chile. And I was at home waiting for my dad to come home, and he didn't come home for days and days, like many workers. So there's a certain irony, I don't know if it's poetic or what, that because certainly I marked the beginning of my political career to my childhood on that date. So there's a sort of a nice poetic coincidence to the fact that this last day of my council term is on the 11th of September. So yeah, I thank everybody, and yeah, wish people well. Thanks.
Please, Councillor, Your Worship.
Well, I would like to say that I forgot one important thing: the community who really help me and support me here, and I think I really do love and listen to every one of them. And also, I will never forget my family. I never home. And my family supports me wholeheartedly as well, so I really appreciate that, and yeah, I'll remember that forever.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wanted to say right at the outset that having come on council in 2005 originally, apart from the 4 years from 2016 to 2020, and having watched councils coming on as an elected representative, I have no difficulty in saying, as far as I'm concerned, this particular council that I've served on over the last 4 years has been the most remarkable. I really appreciate the collegiate spirit amongst us all. It really is a demonstration that our similarities are far greater than our differences. We all have worked together, remarkably over the 4 years for the betterment of, as the Worship the Mayor, Councillor Cook-Lamb points out, and that's the refugee with the red suitcase, by the way. It's about the community. And that's what we are trying to make this a better place as we leave it than how we've found it. And I think that's the hallmark of this particular council. We are the envy of so many other jurisdictions, I can tell you. And I'm told this by councillors from those other jurisdictions. Our success, however, isn't predicated just on our efforts. It is with the efforts of the Chief Executive, Celia Haddock, and prior to her, I want to acknowledge Stephen Wall, Kerry Thompson, Vince Haney, all CEOs that I've had the joy of working with over the years, and also the absolute bevy of executive directors and directors, all the way down to the staff members who clean our streets, who sweep our roadways, who man and person our libraries. It is remarkable, and I thank you all. It has been wonderful. I want to acknowledge my community. Thank you so much. Democracy is a funny thing. They love you one day, they don't necessarily love you the next. That's democracy, and we will live with that. And that's the great thing about this country, that we actually have the opportunity to exercise our right to change our mind. And we will be led by who we think is most appropriate for the occasion. I want to acknowledge my partner, Mary Dowling, my wife, Janine Wiggins, my children, Lachlan and Hannah Clark. Without them, this would never have been. They gave me the opportunity to enter this business. They give me the opportunity to continue. And whether I rise for the next election and I come forward, great. If I fail, great. As long as I've made the effort. And I think for all of us who are standing again, regardless of the outcome, it is the effort with which we make. It's been a wonderful time, fantastic journey. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Councillor Huhera, Councillor Tran, Your Worship, Mayor Cookland, Cy Crawford, fantastic Cy. Simon lived round the corner. It was great. I drive by, screaming at him, get a haircut, get a job. Fantastic. And it's, again, a joy. And Councillor Thomas, thank you so much. All of you. It's been fantastic fun.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I proceed, Council staff, I do apologise. I think you may regret giving us this opportunity now, but we will take it nonetheless. I'll extend that anguish for a little bit longer.
Who's Councillor Thomas?
You can go first.
Oh, no, Councillor Thomas, sorry.
You can go.
No, Councillor Thomas, you first, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to probably add a few things to what the other councillors have said. I've really enjoyed working with this group of councillors. After I worked in local government for 20 years and 12 as a manager and sometimes as a director, and I thought I knew a lot about local government, which I probably did, but I didn't know what happened on this side of the table. And I know it took me a while to find my feet of not being an officer, trying to wrangle those councillors into a decision or into something. And I know how much work it does take behind the scenes to prepare reports and briefings and do the research and come up with options and present them in a way that council can consider and make decisions on. So I really thank the Celia and the team, because I know that is a lot of work, and sometimes it might seem like we're not spending enough time considering the work that somebody's spent 6 months on preparing, but we have really appreciated all of your work, and you've brought us well-researched, well-informed, well-articulated information over the last 4 years for us to be able to consider and make decisions on behalf of the community. I really do hope that the community sees that we have represented the sentiment that's out there in our community. Sometimes it's, as Michael said, sometimes it's a mixed sentiment. Sometimes we're all aligned, and that's when it's easy. There are times when it's been challenging, but that's the part I have probably mostly really enjoyed, is helping the community to understand how they can become active citizens, how they can take the make use of democracy, be involved in the decisions, participate, inform and influence decisions. And that's been really great to see people, once you sort of give them a little bit of information about how the process works, them jumping on board and being part of those decisions. It's been really great across a whole lot of issues to see that happening, and to see them interacting with not just councillors but also with the officers as well, to sort of craft some of those decisions that we're all collectively making. To Councillor Lamb, who up until now we've been the Stony Creek Ward councillors, and I'll miss having a ward buddy if I'm re-elected next time, because I know we've worked really well together, and it's been great to work with you. And probably the last thing, I should know this, but I think it's one of the themes of council is ethical leadership. I think we've represented that theme really well. Collective decision making is never easy, but I think we've had a really good crack at fulfilling that remit that we gave ourselves 4 years ago, with the help of the officers, of course, and with the community. So I feel really proud that we've been able to fulfil that remit that we gave ourselves. So thanks to everybody. It's been a great 4 years.
Thank you very much. Right. I do apologise once again.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Go for it.
I say this because I reflect on Sarah, and I have many regrets in that respect, in that I wish to pay... the saying goes that many people don't get their flowers till the day they die. So I wish to give my flowers now, as verbally as I can, to the councillors, not just those that have been here before. And I say this as humbly as I can, being as young as I am, and having come into this thing absolutely with no background experience other than my love for my community. That's all I had at the time. To Councillor Clark, for your years of experience, which you so openly shared with me, I think just about, you tell me, Michael, but I think with no limitations, absolutely any questions, any queries, was always an offer of an answer, of advice. And I'm always very grateful for that. Councillor Lamb,
thank you.
Cook, exactly the same. I'm so grateful. You have also guided me in so many different ways in terms of the way that the way I view our multicultural community, and the way that we address so many our diverse communities. And I'm again really appreciative of that. To Councillor Kera, we might have joined council at the same time, but it felt like you were light years ahead of me in terms of the way that you were able to captivate the gallery in particular. Always the way you turn to the gallery and say directly at them. It's something that I had sort of picked up on. I thought I would steal it for myself and make it a part of the way I work in terms of council, because I think it creates not the illusion but the connection with us in council, that there is, that take away the table, we're one with the people one with us. And I am forever grateful that you've done that before I did, and I could learn from that. To Councillor Thomas, your keen eye for detail is something I picked up on, and in my latter months, the latter years on council, sort of picked up on that as well. Because the devil's always in the detail, and I learned to appreciate that from you in particular. To Councillor Crawford, for your years of service, but I think more than taking away your council, the fact that you're a dad, your ability to balance all of this and to know how to prioritise everything in life. I think that's something I'm going to have to learn sooner or later. And to know that there is a council I can turn to and ask those questions to in the future is reassuring. And of course, like Councillor Carter, who I looked up to tremendously as a mentor and as a friend, I wish I'd given her flowers a lot earlier. But she was a true leader for me, a true friend, and most importantly, I think each councillor agrees, a true asset to our community and to our councillors. God forbid she come back, because if she does, I'd probably lose out on any future considerations for any elections, I think. And to the council staff, thank you so much for all of your efforts. The late nights, the endless nights, the brutal commentary from some councillors, or feedback. But I would like to say a special thank you to particular staff, which have been here since I started. To Lisa King, to Ashley Minetti, to Patrick Jess, and to our CEO Celia Haddock, thank you so much for helping me. Seriously, someone who had no idea what I was doing in local government. Stand here and speak as if I know exactly what I'm talking about a lot of the time, which hopefully I do. And to the broader community, I hope that in my brief stint here, there has been some inspiration for the younger community to step up, to show their energy, to show their flair, and to show their desire to give back to this community. I know there will be many young candidates in this next election, and I'm excited to see that. Councillors, to conclude tonight's the suspension of meetings, I merely wish to say best of luck, and I hope to see you all again. Councillors, I'll move a motion to resume standing orders. Councillor Thomas. I call for Councillor. Second the motion. Councillor Clark. Apologies, councillors. I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried, councillors. That being the case, I now declare the meeting closed at 8:52 p.m.
Thank you. It's been a joy.